I'm playing football in Camogie a long time now. So I suppose our family at the moment, we're definitely a GA fanatical family now. But I suppose that's only since we started playing. So my parents would not have been kind of a traditional GA fanatical family at all, actually. So in my family, I have an older brother. So I have a brother, Jory, he's 3 years older than me. And I have a twin sister, Mary. So I have to say it was my brother, Jory, who introduced hurling and football into our house. So it's kind of when he went to school, I suppose, he started getting into sport, and he became, you know, like a lot of young boys and girls, he became just enthralled with it. He loved it. And I suppose he needed people to play with at home. And he had 2 willing participants with him. And look, we just took it from the get-go. We absolutely loved it. But like I would have to say, and I definitely would emphasize this, like there's no photo of me of it as a 2-year-old with a hurley in my hand or a football in my hand. I actually can remember getting my first hurley. So I must have been relatively old, you know. I don't know what age I was, but I was in school, I would say. So Rena Buckley used to babysit us, and her husband, Dinny, he gave us our first hurleys. I'll never forget them. They were miles and miles too big for us. I'd say they're probably 32s or 4s hurleys, like we were only kids, you know, and we absolutely loved it. So that was kind of our introduction to GA. And then we went on to primary school, and, you know, GA was the sport in school. And we would have played football before Christmas and hurling after Christmas. And we would have played in the Skeena Skull competitions, which is the primary school competition in Cork. And anyone who's from Cork would know that the Skeena Skull competition is as serious as the senior intercounty competition. It's taken really, really seriously. So from second class on in Berring's National School, you were training like to get on the Skeena Skull team. So my kind of earliest memory of a match would have been, so from second class you would have been put in teams in the school, you know, so you would have had an inter-school blitz. So my earliest memory would be playing in that inter-school blitz in Berring's. And I have one outstanding memory. So there was a neighbour down the road, he's called Kenneth Sewell. He was on my team, and my brother was on my team as well. And it must have been a critical game in this really important inter-school blitz. And I was only in second class, and I think Kenneth Sewell was in sixth class. And I should have taken the shot, but I passed the ball to Kenneth Sewell, and Kenneth was in a bad position. He missed the shot. And I remember I came home, and my brother, he made sure that I learned my lesson that day, that you only pass the ball if the other person is in the better position. So that's my earliest memory of playing GA, and it was a good lesson to get. There's been loads of people who have contributed so much time into helping me play and to allowing me to develop as a player. Definitely in my early days, my brother Jory would have been a huge influence on me. He would have been, the person who would have given me probably the most feedback. He would have been hugely encouraging, and we would have played together, and he was a huge influence on me, right throughout my playing days, and probably still is to a point as well. My sister obviously is the same age as me, so we would have been growing up together, so we would have been on all the same teams, so she was a huge influence as well. Moving on then, I suppose you would have had influences in school. So in Berring's National School, Paul Olden was our principal, and he really set a massive foundation in terms of a love of GA and a love of sport. And he would have been a huge influence as a young girl growing up. And then I suppose I have two clubs I play with in Escara and Camogie, and I play with Dunamore in football. So there would have been, super underage coaches there who would have brought you along. I suppose in Dunamore we would have had a coach, Mossy Barrett, with us. So Mossy would have been a huge influence on me. He would have been coaching the senior team, but I suppose I joined the senior team at a relatively young age, and he was there for a long number of years, so he would have had a huge influence on me. In an Escara, I think a person who would have had a big influence would have been probably Emma Deneen. She was the under-12 coach, and she gave a great introduction to the club, and Camogie in the club and the values in the club. So she was very influential. I suppose then I was lucky enough to to progress on to Cork teams, and we had great underage coaches. And I suppose with the Cork Camogie team, we would have had a guy, John Cronin. He was in charge of the minors. So as a developing player, he would have been hugely influential, and also he would have taken the seniors for a couple of years as well. So he would have had a big influence on me. But I suppose the person who certainly had the biggest influence, without a doubt, would be Eamon Ryan. I suppose Eamon, look, he's an exceptional person. He's an exceptional coach. But he really put in a huge effort, you know, in terms of our development as athletes, our development as footballers. But he also would have put a huge effort into making sure that we developed as people. So it's something that I've really appreciated. I suppose in my younger days, I didn't realise how much of an influence he was. But when I speak to my parents now, they would always say that, you know, when I was, you know, 17, 18, coming home from training, you know, I tell them, Eamon said this today, Eamon said that. Whereas in my older days, you know, I appreciated what he was saying in the moment. But definitely he's the guy who had the largest influence on me as a player and as a person. The first time I got selected to play on any Cork team was when I was in primary school, so on the Cork primary game team. So I have fond memories. That was the first time I managed to get a Cork jersey. So we played before Cork played Waterford in a senior football game. So we would have played at halftime of that game, and actually Breach Corkery was on the same team as me. So that was the first time I played on the same team as Breach Corkery, and we played a lot of games and a lot of training since. So that was a lovely experience. So I've kind of two standout memories of that. One would be I'll never forget being in the, you know, you do a guard of honour as the team run onto the field, and I had never seen the power of, you know, of intercounty men running at that point in my life, and I'll never forget standing, you know, in the guard of honour and they just running past me. It was mind blowing. And the second one was, you know, we got a jersey and we got to keep our jersey, so that was unbelievable to an 11 or 12-year-old. And I remember after the game, someone asked me, would I sign their jersey? So that was a surreal experience as a 12-year-old. So look, it was a brilliant experience, and I'm so appreciative, you know, that we got to have that experience. It definitely was tricky, and I didn't get it right all of the time. Definitely not. You know, there was a certain learning process attached to it as well. Now, I have to say I had some advantages. First of all, I suppose I come from a county where a dual player is very traditional, so it wasn't groundbreaking. There was a group of us doing it, and there's a history of people doing it as well, so that was a huge advantage. Secondly, like, both the Cork football team and the Cork Camogie team, you know, were kind of on an equal footing, so that was very advantageous as well. You know, that it was much easier for me to treat both teams very equally because both teams were on an equal footing. I have to compliment all my teammates. They showed huge understanding. You know, that without that type of understanding and support, it would have been impossible. And then I think one of the key things was the management support. So the fact that the managers allowed it to happen, supported it, you know, that was absolutely critical. So without that, it just wouldn't have been possible. From a personal point of view, like I say, I didn't get it right all the time. There were some times that I definitely would have overcooked it, you know, tried to do too much, maybe, you know, not recovered adequately after matches. But I would say, like, what's really, really important is that, you know, you have a great attitude and a great desire, a great enthusiasm and a great hunger for work and for effort. It takes, you know, physically, it is demanding, but, you know, if you're in good shape, you can, as long as you're managing your games, you know, you should be able to, you know, to meet that mark. But I think the biggest thing is the mental side of it. You know, you have to be hungry for training, hungry for matches, and for a large number of matches and training. So if you can match the, you know, the demand with your enthusiasm and desire, you know, then it can be a fantastic experience. So I'm very lucky. I had a fantastic experience, and like I will say, as time is moving on, and you know, there's more training sessions in terms of gym sessions and video sessions. and there's more back doors and there are more games, it's definitely getting more difficult. But I'm very lucky. I seem to hit it at a fantastic time, and you know, I got great enjoyment out of playing on 2 fantastic teams and 2 great championships. So it was a dream come true, to be fair. The first time I got to play in Croke Park was in 2004. So it was with the Cork Camogie team in 2004. So it was my first year on the Cork panel. I remember for the league, I didn't get a whole pile of starts in the league. I was more kind of coming on. And then when it came to the Munster Championship, I managed to get myself a place at wing back. I was number 7. So I managed to hold down that place for the rest of for the Munster Championship and into the All Ireland Championship. So we progressed steadily along. I think we played Limerick, I think, in the semi-final, and we got to the All Ireland final. We played Tipperary in the final. So at the time, Tipperary, they were champions going into the game. You know, they had some exceptional players at the time. They had, you know, the likes of Uno Dwyer, Emer MacDonald, and I was marking their captain on the day, actually, Joanne Ryan. So it was Tipperary won the game. Joanne Ryan actually scored a crucial goal. I think I got on okay, but that goal was crucial. So that was a bit disappointing. But at the same time, look, it was a huge experience for me. I did enjoy it, even though we lost. I learned loads from it. And it's something that, you know, I'll remember forever. I think one of the main memories I have from it, I remember we got the bus to the game, and I think at the time they just had the radio going. I don't think there was any specific, you know, CD or tape being played on the bus. And I remember Queen's song Under Pressure played on the way in, and I remember thinking, geez, that's quite apt for the day that's in it. We're under a bit of pressure today, and look, Tip got away with the win. They were a better team on the day, but you know, look, it was a great experience to play in Croke Park. I was very aware. I was a very young player. I mean, I was only doing my leaving cert on the, you know, at the time, you know, so you know, I was quite young. You know, so I suppose I would have been following the Cork Camogie team for years, so I would have been confident that, you know, we'd be back, you know. So look, it was disappointing, but at the same time, I knew I could improve. I knew the team would improve, and there'd be other days. And look, that came to pass, and we were very, you know, we were delighted with that. I suppose obviously being from Cork, it was always going to be a trip to Dublin. So there was an element of excitement. There was always going to be an overnight stay with any All Ireland final. So obviously during the years things would have changed in terms of our preparation, but in general, I suppose you would have trained the week of the game the same as usual. There might have been a bit more media stuff going on the week of the game. I suppose what would have happened the week of the game, I suppose for a lot of players, which was lovely, you know, there would be best of luck cards would arrive at home. There would have been phone calls, and in later years, obviously text messages and so on. But that's a lovely experience, you know, that people would think of you and send a card. So, you know, that's something that's really nice. Then I suppose the routine for the weekend would be, I suppose we always would have got the train up initially. In later years, there was times we would have got a bus up, but you know, I suppose for the majority of the finals that I would have played in, it would have been the train. So you would meet at the train station in Cork, in Kent Station. We would have put our bags on a bus. The buses would have gone to Dublin. Then we might have got a little bit of lunch, and got the train then at around 1 or 2 o'clock usually. So we would have been having our lunch kind of around 12 o'clock, which was nice. Onto the train, then we would have enjoyed the train trip to Dublin. You know, there might have been a quiz organised, or, you know, a bit of crack, or people playing cards, and, you know, it was lovely to relax with your teammates. And like, obviously everyone is excited about the weekend. So then you land up in Euston Station, and you meet the bus again. So the bus has your bags, and you get on the bus and you get out to the hotel. So we would have stayed in different hotels for different years, depending on the year and the team. You know, Camogie might have stayed at a different hotel to the football. So then you have your dinner. You might have a puck around. There might be a team meeting. You know, there might be physio. There might be massage.
but there would be some personal time as well. So that was always very enjoyable. You got to have time with, with your teammates, and it was good fun. So you try and sleep that night. Didn't always work out, but you do your best to sleep. And you'd have breakfast in the morning. There'd always be mass organised in the hotel. So it was always a lovely mass because it was always very much directed to wishing you luck in the match. Then you would have had team meetings, maybe defenders meetings, the forwards having their own meetings. There might have been a puck around or a kick around. There might have been a team walk, different bits and pieces like that. And one thing that would have always happened is you would have had some time in your room. So with the ladies final, that the junior final is generally on at 12 o'clock, the intermediate final is generally on at 2 o'clock, and the senior final is generally on at 4. So you would always have had a chance to look at some of the junior game in your hotel room. So that's kind of a lovely experience because you get to see, your colleagues in one sense playing in an All-Ireland final. You get to see what the conditions are like, and it just kind of normalises the whole thing that, you're just going out to play a match. So then I suppose when it's time to leave, you'd load up on the bus and you get a guard escort to the pitch. So that's kind of a lovely experience as well. It's not something that happens every day of the week. And it's exciting, and you know that you're doing something special. So then you're arriving at the grounds, and you're seeing all the fans and so on, and people are waving at you, and the opposition are waving their flags very strongly at you, which is nice. And which we've all done as supporters, as youngsters as well. And then you get to the dressing room, and you find your spot in the dressing room, and straight away that it's a luxurious dressing room, so it must be a kind of a special day. And from there then you're into your normal kind of match routine, and that's kind of the flow of the weekend for us anyway. I remember we played Dublin actually in one of the All-Ireland finals, and I remember we met in Cork at 12 o'clock on the Saturday. And I remember speaking to one of the Dublin girls after, and I remember they told me that they met in Dublin at 1 o'clock on the Sunday. And I just thought it was funny, how different it is depending on what part of the country that you're coming from. So look, that's the Cork experience, but I'm sure other counties have very different experiences. Getting in the zone is a kind of a tricky thing to talk about, and I suppose everybody's a little bit different. So for me, generally, what the way I would roll, and the way I probably would still roll a little bit for a game is, like, you would be preparing mentally, definitely the week coming up to a game, and for me personally, I would be, the week of a game, I'd be very pessimistic, to be honest. Every day of the week, I'd wake up thinking, that the team we're going to be playing are going to be excellent, and you'd be thinking about all their strong points, and you might know who you'd be marking, and you'd be thinking about all their strong points, and how good they are, and how we could be in a lot of trouble on the day. But generally, I kind of tend to have all that pessimism thought out of me by the time it comes around to Sunday or whatever day the game is on. So generally, I would wake up on the day of the game very optimistic and very hopeful that actually we've prepared very well, I've prepared very well, and that today could very well be our day. And look, obviously things would change down through the years, you mature as a player and so on, and I suppose definitely as I've gotten older, I've gained a lot more confidence in terms of the work I've done myself in preparation for the game, and the work that the team has done in preparation for the game. And that would give you a lot more kind of calmness and steadiness. I think as a younger player, maybe for me anyway, maybe I would have thought it was more hit and miss whether you play well or not. But you're learning all the time. It's a learning process, and as you get older, you kind of would gain more confidence in the work that you've done. So on the day then, I suppose, look, you've had prep during the week in terms of who you're going to be marking, what style of play you're going to implement, what style of play you expect the opposition to implement. So then you're thinking through that, and you're making sense of that in your head, and you're kind of making plans in terms of how you're going to react. So that's all part of kind of getting in the zone, I suppose. And then
from a physical point of view, in terms of preparation, I suppose what I would find important is that I suppose you're eating the couple of days beforehand, that you're making sure you're eating well, you're eating enough, you're carb loading. Then on the day of the game, what you're eating is what would suit you. So I suppose as a younger player, again, I would have been able to eat a lot more. As an older player, the day of a game, through even nervousness and just becoming older, you would eat a lot less, and you'd know as well what suits you and what doesn't. So that stuff would have changed as you progressed along. And then just for myself physically, I suppose I would definitely have to do a kind of a stretching and an activation routine beforehand. So you get to the dressing room, you do your mobilization, your activation, and the warm-up takes that little bit longer as you get older. So just going through that routine and just having that kind of confidence that, when you go through this process, then you'll be physically prepared. All that stuff helps you to just get ready, get in the zone for the game, and be ready to perform, I suppose. I would say as you're going out for an All-Ireland final, it would be, even though it is a quite emotional day and weekend, and there's certainly for a female in particular, it's quite a different build-up, because it is important to note that if you're playing in Croke Park as a female, then it's All-Ireland final day. Which makes it slightly different to a male. A male will have played in Croke Park for a quarter-final, semi-final, so therefore it's not that different a day. But for a female, if you're in Croke Park, it's a big, big day. It's All-Ireland final day. So definitely there's emotion attached to it. But when you're getting to the nitty-gritty of running out from the dressing room out onto the field, the kind of things I'd be thinking about are, the style of play that the team is going to play, the person I'm marking, what I'm going to do to counteract them, and what I'm going to do to make them counteract me almost, So I would say I would try to take the emotion out of it, just prepare as normal and do your best to perform, which is kind of logical thinking more than emotional thinking, to be honest. So that's kind of the way I am going out into a game. I've been really, really lucky. I could never have predicted, the amount of success that we had as teams. Like it was phenomenal. Like I suppose, one of my early memories of playing at home as a youngster, you would pretend to be somebody. My sister, for some reason, always picked Pat Fox from Tipperary. We could never figure it out, but I would have always picked Teddy McCarthy. So Teddy McCarthy would have been a dual player, and he would have won All-Irelands with the footballers and hurlers in 1990 for Cork. So I suppose that was the aspiration, to be like Teddy McCarthy, and that was always the dream from a young age. And I remember we won the double in 2005 with the Camogie Ladies Footballers, and that was the first time that I think any team had done it, maybe, but it was definitely the first time in Cork, and it was a huge thing, and it was really special. And we were so honoured to be part of such a special double, but it turned out that happened, a couple of times, it actually happened 6 times that we were part of that unique double. So, I mean, that was unprecedented. It was phenomenal. And I suppose when I was growing up, I would have been supporting the Cork Camogie team. I would have been going to Croke Park, supporting the Cork Camogie team. Irene O'Keefe was from Inniscarra and Geraldine Casey, and we used to go up supporting them. We used to get the team buses up. But actually, when I was a young girl, I think I went to one ladies football match ever, because I was playing at half time, so the primary game extended to the ladies, and that's the reason I went to that game. And the Cork Ladies Footballers, we played Waterford, and Waterford were a powerhouse at the time, and Cork were not. And I couldn't get over how much Cork were beaten by on the day. So I suppose I'm really lucky that, when I came along with a Cork football team, we were suddenly a very competitive team, and that hadn't been the case, in the early 2000s and the 90s. So look, I came along, at the right time, in the right place, and we'd great people around us. So I could never have expected that, but it was, it's been
been a dream come true. It's different and for everybody, but for me, I suppose I was always aware of what an honour it was to play. First of all, to represent the Cork team. You know, to get on a Cork team is a huge honour, and you know, you're representing yourself and your family and your club and your community, and it's a really big honour, you know. And it's I suppose it's something that's part of your culture and part, you know, that someday you might get to represent your county, and you grow up listening to this. And you know I have vivid memories of we had a guy from Inniscarra, Jonathan Olden, and he won a minor football All-Ireland with Cork, and he brought the cup into our primary school. And I remember him saying, and I'm sure people across the country have heard this being said, you know, that you know someday you might get the chance to play in a Cork team and bring a cup back to your school. And I heard that as a young girl, and I believed it, like, you know, and I was so lucky that I got the chance to do it. So I suppose when you are playing with Cork then, or with your county, you are highly aware of what an honour it is. So that emotion is definitely with you. You know, it's you get so many well wishes and best of luck messages beforehand from people of all ages, from people you might not expect, and from your family and friends. And you know, it's a lovely experience. So I suppose, look, it's a huge honour. It's a fabulous experience. Sometimes it doesn't go as well as you'd hope, and because there's such an emotional high beforehand, you know, if it doesn't go well, it's very deflating. There's no doubt about that. And like, I've had poor games in All-Ireland finals, and it's a hard one to take, so that can be quite disappointing. So I suppose at another level, then it's important to realise that, you know, you can only do your best. You know, if you prepare very well and you get beaten on the day, it doesn't go well, it's just a match, you know. It's not your identity, it's not yourself. You know, you must be happy to, you know, you've done your best. You know, it's not just one game. You've worked for a long time to get to that position. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But if it does work out, you know, there's huge satisfaction in, I suppose, look, there's huge satisfaction in getting there and doing your best. But I suppose it's the icing on the cake. If you do your best, things go well, and if the team gets a win, you know, it's a lovely experience. It's a huge honour for me that I got to captain Cork teams. So so I suppose in Cork, how we get how our captain is selected. So the club that wins the county championship, they have that club then selects the captain of the county team. So I suppose first and foremost, you're representing your club, and then obviously you're captain of your county team. So I suppose that's a huge honour on a personal level. It's a huge honour for the club, and it's a huge honour for your family as well. So look, I suppose I was lucky enough. I got to captain Cork in 2012 in the All-Ireland final against Kerry, and I got to captain Cork in the Camogie in 2017 in the All-Ireland final against Kilkenny. So they were both, I suppose, fantastic experiences. I suppose there was a 5-year gap between one and the other, and definitely I would have enjoyed the second experience a little bit better than the first experience, because you grow and you develop as a person. So I suppose I certainly would have enjoyed the second experience a little bit more. But I mean, like, I suppose on reflection, the first experience was nicer on reflection probably than at the time, because you know, there's a lot of nerves at play. You know, you have to play a big game and then follow it up, if you win, with a speech, and there's a big audience for that speech, and you're acutely aware of that, like, you know. But I'd have to say, like, on my second occasion being captain, it was something that I really enjoyed. And I suppose I was a bit older. I was acutely aware of what a proud day it was for myself, I suppose, definitely for my family and for my parents, for our community at home, our club at home, and for our county as well. And I suppose, look, an All-Ireland final, it's a sporting occasion, but at the same time, it's I think it's bigger than that. Like, I think it's a huge part of our culture. I think it's a huge part of our Irish identity. An All-Ireland final is a huge event. And I know when we were in primary school, I'm not sure about every other primary school, but when we were in school, we used to practice, you know, and the teacher used to make us say it out, like to Anna, Sorn, One Cornsaw, Glacka, or Sunfern, Corky for us, obviously. And you know, to be able to live that experience and to be able to do that, it was, you know, such an honour, you know. And so I was very lucky. I did my 2 speeches as Gaeilge. So that was a huge thing for me, because I do think it's an expression of your culture, and to be able to do that, what an honour! It's unbelievable. No, obviously I was very, very lucky, and we had brilliant teams. But on a personal level, geez, great experience, great honour. So I count myself very, very lucky. I have 3 All-Ireland club medals with Dunamore. So I have a senior medal from 2001, a senior medal from 2003, and actually we won a junior All-Ireland last year in 2019. So it's a funny kind of turnaround, but yeah. So I suppose I joined the Dunamore panel kind of in 2001. I was quite young. I was actually a 14-year-old. So what happened was, I suppose Dunamore would have had a strong team at the time. We would have won a couple of county championships at that point, and a couple of our key players would have gone to America for the summer on J1s. So the key players were Juliet Murphy, Ruth Ann Buckley, and Linda O'Connell. So like, they were top players for Dunamore. So there was a little bit of panic on. So I got drafted into the team. I think I played a challenge match the week before the first round of the championship, and then I got a game in the first round of the championship. Now, it was widely expected we wouldn't win the county championship that year, but we managed to upset the form a little bit, because we were down a couple of our top players. We won the county championship, and it actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because I suppose we had a stronger panel going forward then. So the girls came home from America, and we went on and we beat Ballymacarbery in the Munster Club final. So that was the first time that Dunamore would have won a Munster Club final, and it was a huge celebration, because I think we'd lost, I think it was 5 Munster championships in a row, maybe, against Ballymacarbery, you know, who were an outstanding team at the time, and they had won a lot of All-Ireland championship and so on. So I mean, I was just on the crest of a wave, really, to be honest. I was playing with this Dunamore team. I'd never lost a match with them. So we continued on. We played an All-Ireland semi-final. We played against Father Murphy's in London. So you can imagine, I was 14. I'd never been abroad. I remember I had to get a use it card to get on a plane to play this match. You know, it was a massive experience. I think my parents came with me because I'd never been abroad, so they felt they had to accompany me. And you know, it was a great celebration as well. You know, there was a big crowd went from Dunamore to London. It was huge. So we won that game, and after that we went on and we played Ballybone St Indas in the All-Ireland final. So this was back in 2001. So I suppose my outstanding memory from that game was Ballybone St Indas. Look, they were a Dublin team. They were probably a bit more progressive than we were in terms of the marketing of the game. So Ballybone St Indas came on, and you know, their supporters had jerseys, they had flags, they had drums, they had banners, and our supporters came along, you know, just to the match. They had nothing with them. So definitely they would have had the upper hand in the supporting, but thanks be to God we had the upper hand in the game. And you know, it was a fairy tale year. It was a fantastic experience. I was very young at the time, but I remember thinking that this is something very, very special. And it was my first time, I suppose, being on an adult team, and I remember the social scene after the game, and I remember being in the pub, and I remember the sing songs, and it was my first exposure to that type of a setting as well. And you know, it was a great experience, and it was highly enjoyable. And you know, I was minded, obviously, very much by the club and by the team and so on, and it was just a really lovely experience. It was fairy tale stuff. It was fantastic. And then I suppose 2 years later we would have gone on and won our second All-Ireland. So we played Centralstown in the final that year.
So that was it was a brilliant win as well. I suppose after that we kind of cruised along for a couple of years. We would have contested a number of semi-finals and finals, but didn't quite get over the line. So look, it was lovely to experience those wins so early in my career, and it was hugely important in terms of my development as a player. So, you know, I was very, very lucky, you know. And then I suppose we suffered a bit of hard times in the club, I suppose. Look, that team, a lot of people would have moved on at the same time. There might have been a gap in terms of underage players coming through. And we actually failed to field for a couple of years, and that was hugely disappointing. But in 2018, the team got up and running again. We played in the junior county championship, and we were beaten by Glanmire, I think. And last year we got back up and running again. We went back training early. We went back on the 6th of January in 2019, and we trained right the way through. And we would have played in the All Ireland club final, I think in November of last year. We played McHale Rovers of Mayo, and we managed to get the upper hand on them. So after extra time, it was a real tight game. So I'm very lucky to have, you know, to get an All Ireland Junior Club medal as well. So it was with a very, very different team in 2019 to back in 2001, 2003. But I suppose the camaraderie and the celebrations were, you know, they were very, very similar, and it was a great experience. Obviously, I've been involved in some really memorable games and so on. And, you know, with the Cork footballers, you know, we played against Dublin in 2014, and that was a really memorable game to be involved in. So that year, I think, you know, Dublin were exceptional. They were nearly home and hose at halftime, to be honest. I remember we came in at halftime when Eamon Ryan I thought he was going to give out to us, but he actually didn't even say much to us. He was so disappointed in how we played, and I thought we'd pick up from there, you know, and actually Dublin pushed on for the first 10 minutes of the second half. But suddenly there was a kind of a momentum swing, and we managed to get on top, and, you know, it was a serious turnaround in the game. How we managed to win that game in 2014, it was, you know, it was unbelievable to be involved in, and, you know, you could feel the momentum at the time and the excitement build up. So that was a great game to be involved in. I suppose the last camogie game I played with Cork would have been the 2017 All Ireland final. So we beat Kilkenny, and again we were behind, and I think we levelled the point. Jim O'Connor scored an outstanding point to level the game at about full time, and Julia White managed to get a point to put us in the lead in extra time, and it was just a hugely exciting game, very closely contested. And I suppose going out onto the field, I kind of had an idea that it would be my last game with Cork, so, you know, it was something that I really cherished. But if I was actually to pick out a moment in all of my career that I suppose was one of the most sweetest moments for me on a personal level, the one I'd pick actually was so with our club camogie team in Escara. So 2010 was the year that we won our first county championship. And I suppose at that stage I would have been playing with the club for a number of years, and I wasn't sure if we'd ever win a county. So we played Enniskillen in the county final. It was a replay. I'd actually missed the drawing game because I was injured, and I was very disappointed about that. So I went to a replay, and I was delighted to get a chance to play in the replay. And I remember we were 2 points down, and time was up, and we got a free which dropped short, and I actually pulled on the ball, and I scored a goal, totally against my normal style of play, to be honest. So I think it's probably the only goal I've ever scored that has been an important goal, and it was such an important game, and it was in extra time, and it was to win the game. I remember the euphoria, and I remember thinking after the game, if forwards experience this type of euphoria all the time, what are we doing in the backs? Like, the forwards is the place to be. But don't worry, I don't have the creativity to be in the forwards. I'll go straight back into the backs. But definitely, if there was one moment that was just sheer euphoria, that was probably it. It was phenomenal. And to,
you know, to get over the line for Niscara to have their first win in a county championship ever, it was just fantastic. And if I was to pick one moment, that would probably be it. There was a little YouTube clip went around for a while. So the game was on in CIT in Cork. So I think the crowd just, like the person holding the phone, the crowd went mad. The phone was going everywhere. And geez, it was like anything in Crow Park. It was unbelievable. And I remember I had no reaction. I turned around and went straight back to our goals to make sure that, you know, we'd get over the line. So thanks be to God we did anyway. So geez, it was fantastic. In football, I would say without a shadow of a doubt, the toughest opponent that I've had to face would be Cora Staunton. I played against Cora at club and county level. She's a special player. She's, you know, look, everybody knows how good she is. Her strength, her power, her finishing, and along with that, like her drive is phenomenal. So she's just someone. I think if you're going out to mark her, you kind of have to accept, you know, you're not going to keep her scoreless on the day. You're just going to have to do your best. And you know, she's certainly been the top player I've marked. In terms of camogie, I think the best player that I've come against has been Emer MacDonald from Tipperary. She was part of that Tipperary team that were dominant in the early 2000s. Her skill level is phenomenal. Her eye for goal is phenomenal. So she's always looking for goals. She's lightning quick. And she's someone that I would have definitely found very hard to, you know, to keep quiet in my day. And she's a player that I have huge respect for. What advice I would give to every young player is to do your very best and to give your whole self to the sport. You might always get what you want, but if you give your whole self to the sport, then you have to be satisfied with that. So what I mean by giving your whole self to the sport is like going to training, make sure you're at training when training is on. Not just being at training, being enthusiastic at training. Like enjoy it, enjoy the friendships. Enjoy the fitness element, the health element of it. Enjoy the challenges, so the matches, trying to, you know, to perfect the skill, and just the whole family of sport. You know, it's a lovely thing to be part of. It's a healthy thing to be part of. Socially, it's very inclusive, and it gives you a huge network of friends. So, like, I definitely would encourage everybody to do their best, to try their best. Not everybody's going to be the star player, but everybody can get huge enjoyment out of playing, doing their best, and huge satisfaction in that, and all the benefits and the education and the enjoyment that sport has to offer. So that's the advice I probably would give to any young player. I just kind of refer back to the last bit of advice. Like, my ultimate highlight from sport has been the people I've met along the way. Like, the journey has been fantastic. Look, I've been very lucky in terms of the medals that we have won as teams, but much more important than that, like the friendships I've made, you know, the people I've met who've been, you know, such good people, such inspiring people, such lovely people. And you know, they've helped me in my life, you know, to develop and to enjoy life. And I think that has been the ultimate highlight for me, really. Just the journey and the people and the enjoyment. It's been fantastic so far, and there's a lot yet to go.